Okay, so here we go. On to the last step. We are going to take our skelegons and we are going to convert them, and we are going to do some parenting, and we're going to set up this flower for animation. All right, so what do we do? I'm going to hit A so we can see this, frame all, and you can see, hey, I have one layer with the petal object, one with the flower pot, and I have one with the stem. Great, so we look good. Next, we're going to send this object over to layout. All right, so in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little white arrow. Click on that arrow and send the object to layout. There it is. So let's take a look. In layout, we have three objects. All right, 1, 2, and 3. We can either select these objects by clicking on them, which is fine. Another option would be if you look at the bottom of your screen here, there is a current item list. You can click on it. It'll show you these items. Another option, if you keep continuing over, head to the right, there's a little white symbol. It looks like a little rectangle. If you click it, you're going to get your current item object list. All right. And if you look at this now, you'll see flower ped, flower pot, flower stem. So if you remember back in Modeler, we named those layers. You don't have to do that, but sometimes it's easier if you can kind of see their name. All right. So now we have the three objects. We need to do a few things. All right. Our objects need to be converted. So basically, we need to take the little bones that are in there, and we need to make those. And we also need to do one thing before we kind of get going. So I'm going to select all three objects. So I held down Shift and I selected all three of these at once. Then I'm going to come down to my property window, or hit P on your keyboard. So here's our properties. All right, so everything has properties. Objects have properties. Bones, lights, cameras all have properties. So our objects, they're going to be deformed by bones. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we change our subdivision order here from first to last. All right, that'll make the deformation look a little bit better when we bend our object or do some posing with our flower. So once I've done that, that's fine. I am done. I can close out of that window. All right, next we have to do this. We have to look at our objects and we have to decide what has bones and what doesn't. And the stem was definitely something that had bones. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to go to that Setup tab. So Setup, and I'm going to look on the left at the tools, and I'm going to find CVT skelegons. That's going to convert your skelegons into bones. So I'm going to hit that button, and if you look really closely, let me zoom in on this guy. You're going to see I have a series of bones, and they form a chain. All right. So when you make these bones, there's already a parent-child relationship. So what that means is that if I select on a bone, and I actually right mouse click, after that it'll select the whole chain, and this will move kind of like a chain if you would swing it around, right? So if one link moves, the next link would move also, and so on and so forth. So I have this little hierarchy going, so that's great, and that's already done for me, so that's finished. Next, I'm going to go ahead and find my pot. Well, that has no bone, so I'm going to ignore that. Next, I'll go to the petal. So I know the petal actually has some skelegons, right? So I'm going to take that and I'm going to hit the CVT skelegon, and there you go. You're going to see this object now has bones. All right, so we're kind of done, except for we have to kind of place this object and make it look like a flower. It looks like a mess right now. So I'm going to go ahead and take that petal object and I'm going to move it up. So T is my shortcut. If you can't remember the shortcuts from Modeler, that's fine. You can just go to the Modify tab. All right, in the Modify tab on the left in Tools, you'll see Move, you'll see Rotate, you'll see Size, and you'll see Stretch. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to hit T to move. And you can change your windows if you want. So in the upper left-hand corner, you can see there's options for display: top, bottom, back, front, right, perspective, light, camera, schematic. You can also hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So pick the view that works best for you. I'm going to go to this view, hit T to move, and I'm just going to click and pull this up. All right, so it looks good as far as position, but it looks kind of weak as far as scale, right? That's a wimpy looking flower. So I'm going to size this up. All right, so that's Shift H, or go to your size option under transform. And I'm just going to make this bigger, all right? And I'll make it funny looking. We'll make this giant, huge flower thing. Looks pretty good, but there's going to be a problem here. I do like where this is, but watch what happens if I rotate my stem. Well, that's not good. I like the deformation. That looks pretty good. But I don't like the fact that this part up here isn't going with it. That's bad. So go back in time. Remember, Control Z is undo, so you can always just Control Z your way back. Auto key is on for me. That's something that you can choose whether you like it on or off just by toggling that little check mark. If it's off, just remember, if you do any movement or animation and you think it looks great and you don't make a keyframe and you move your scrub bar down here, things are going to snap back into place, and you probably don't want that. So up to you whether you want to manually create a keyframe, create key, okay, or just have auto key on. For now, I'm just going to leave auto key on. All right, so I like where this is, but I need to do some parenting. All right, so how do we do this? A couple ways. One is you can just hit M for motion, and then in the window that pops open, there's a drop-down list under parent. The problem here is I got a lot of bones, and I don't necessarily know what they mean, so I'm not going to do this method. It's not going to work. If I had less things in the scene, I could do that. Instead, I'm going to close out that window, and I'm going to do something else. I'm going to select the bone that makes sense to me, that would most likely be the parent object for my pedal. All right, so I'll select that. Under the Setup tab, I'm going to look on my tools on the left, and if I look down towards the bottom, there's a Store selected. So remember, you want to select the parent, store it, and then select the child object. In this case, it's my pedal object, okay? So I have that selected, and then I'm going to come back down, and under Assign, click on that. There'll be a little drop-down list, and we want to say, hey, I want the stored item to be my parent, so select parent from that list. All right, repeat. So select the item that you want to be the parent, store that item, then select the child, and come down to where it says Assign, and assign that item as the parent. Done. So if this worked correctly, I should be able to select some bones and then rotate. Great. Now look, you can see my flower goes along with the stem. Looks good. That makes sense to me. All right, so that's finished. What happens if I move the pot? All right, so if the flower is really in this pot, so I'll go to my pot, and I move the pot around, well, wouldn't the stem go with it? Sure. So that's your indicator. Hey, I better do some parenting. So the pot is going to be the parent of everything. So I'm going to select that item. I'm going to store it. Then I'm going to select the stem, and I'm going to assign the pot as my parent. So what should happen now, I select the pot and I move it around. Great, it works. This rig is done. It's finished. If you feel like playing, you can. All right. But there's a couple problems, I think. So let's see. That looks pretty good, and the pot moves pretty well. I think I can move the pot wherever I want. Looks good. Let's check out these pedals. I think we're done, but maybe we're not. Let's see. If I move a pedal, what happens? Oh, wait a minute. Well, I don't like that. I like the fact that the pedal bends, but I don't like the fact that it's kind of squashing this ball in the middle. It doesn't look good. So we do have a solution for that, and the solution is weight mapping. So remember, these bones, they're just magnets. Each bone is a magnet that affects vertices or points that are closest to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell these bones, so I'm going to right mouse click, which will select the whole chain on each of these individual bones. So I can only, well, I should only do this one time and make my life a little easier. So I selected all these bones, and I'm going to look down at the bottom, and I'm going to hit the property button again, or hit P. So under the bone properties, we have an option for weight map. So remember in the last video, we selected the pedal and we assigned a weight map of ped. All right, good. That makes sense to me. So under bone weight map, I'm going to choose that. And what's going to happen, since I have these bones selected, they're each going to be assigned to only affect the points that have the weight map of ped. So let's see if this works. It works great. So I can move these bones, and the bones will not affect that center ball. And that's kind of what I want. It looks good. So this rig now, I think, is officially done. If I wanted to, I could take the actual object itself, and I could spin it around. All right, so it's a child. Remember, in a child-parent relationship, the child can move independently of its parent. But if the parent goes somewhere, the pot, the children all go with it. All right, so this looks good. The rig is finished. Next thing we're going to look at is adding some surfacing.